Okay. Hey everyone, thank you for joining. Let me share my screen. Just a second. Can you see it now? Can you see my screen, guys?
Yep, got it.
Yep. Cool. So, first of all, thank you for joining for Argo CD contributor meeting. I am your host today, Pasha. Let's start with triage rotation. So, I noticed that we had same people last time and I didn't see the updates. Probably if you forgot to set up triage rotation last meeting. Then you was host last time. Who is on triage? Because I see that you also did triage in October too. And
I think we might have forgotten to update the assignment last week. So my apologies.
Yeah, sure. It's okay. Okay, so we're skipping triage discussion this time. Sorry for that. Who can be primary and secondary triage next week?
I can do it next week.
Okay, thank you. Let's find you. And one from secondary.
I could be secondary.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. First of all, thank you everyone who participated in review and merging pull request last week. Huge thank you for this. Let's start with discussion. So, water Scholt, I hope I pronounce it properly. Are you here?
Hello, yes.
Yeah.
Let me turn on my camera as well. Yeah, it's Wouter Schot in het Hof. It's a long last name, but
Yeah, that's really nice. So you reported this. You want to discuss this issue. Can you explain a bit more what you wanted to discuss?
yeah, sure. So I submitted this issue, and somebody else started working on it and provided a PR. And then once that was submitted, there was a question from one of the maintainers to put this in the meeting. Yeah, so that's the reason why it's in here. But basically, what we would like to do is we want to test certain configuration which we push with Argo. For example, we deploy a metrics exporter, and we want to validate if that metrics exporter is working as it should. So we define certain tests to check that, and we want to run those tests using a post-sync hook. The limitation we faced was that if that post-sync hook fails, there's no way to get the result of that failed or successful sync out of the metrics that are defined by Argo CD. And basically what we would like to achieve is then have a dashboard with alerting that if our tests fail, we want to trigger that. We want to be notified.
And the suggestion here is to do some kind of additional layer that call from post hook to perform a test and after export failure logs matrix.
Yeah, I think technically that will be possible, but then maybe question to all of you. Would that be then the situation for all post sync hooks? Because I can imagine there are a lot of situations where you want to have a post sync hook, and then you always want to make sure that Argo CD is not the owner of defining a status if that post sync hook is failing or not.
Yeah, you kind of question if it will be applied for all post-sync hooks in your Argo CD.
Yeah, so basically is then the stance from the Argo CD project that all the post sync hooks should take care of defining a successful status or not in their own service? Or is that something we can delegate to Argo CD? That's basically my question.
Yeah, I didn't think about the case was Alex wrote here, so definitely has some a bit deeper knowledge about this area. So, maybe Michael, maybe you can elaborate a few words, or Alex, about this.
One thing I'd like to understand in your original proposal is that you suggested to create a new metric or to add a new label in an existing one.
Label. Add new
Yeah,
label.
it's a label in an existing metric. So the Argo
It's a
CD app
label.
condition is already there, and
Okay.
it's showing the status of the sync itself, but not the status of a post sync.
Oh, it shows the status of the sync, but not the post sync. And you want to know the state of the post sync hooks.
Yeah, basically what I described at the top. If the post sync hook is failing, you will see the event. If you scroll a bit up,
Mm-hmm.
in the status condition, you see the type failed. That's the status part that will be shown in the manifest, but that's not a condition that is currently supported in the Argo CD app condition metric.
Right, because post sync hook is executed after the sync. So
Yeah. So basically, if the sync fails, then the app condition will flag that. But if a post sync hook fails, then in Argo CD in the UI you see sync failed, but you do not see any evidence of that in the metric.
I see.
Yeah, and concern of Alex was that it's pretty heavy operation to do it like this. So the question is, what is the best way to cover it?
And you said there's already a PR that implements this.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah.
So the condition field on the app conditions metric, what does it contain when a sync has failed? Not due to a post sync hook, but just a sync failing in general. Is it set to anything useful?
Yeah, I'm not sure on top of my head, but then the metric will define that the sync itself, so syncing the manifest failed. But in this case, syncing of the manifest for the post sync job, so just a job manifest. That one is going fine. So the job is scheduled to Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm.
But then the job itself fails. It's marked in the UI, but it's not marked in the metric.
So wait, let me make sure I understand the flow correctly. You've got a post sync hook, And the post sync hook is itself a job, or it's something that triggers a job?
It's itself a job. So basically, we deploy an application, for example, a metrics exporter, and then we define a job, which is the post sync hook, which then schedules a certain amount of tests.
Okay. So my understanding of post sync hooks is that they're sort of incorporated into the success or failure of a sync. So if your post sync hook fails, then your sync failed, which is why it's surprising to me that when your post sync hook is failing, you aren't already getting the sync error condition. Because I'm just looking through the list of conditions that can be produced, and I see that sync error is one of them. So maybe the bug, I guess, is just that we're not producing a sync error condition. I think that would probably be preferable to adding a new condition that is specific to the failure of a sync hook.
I agree. Yeah, I like that. Makes sense. It's not a new label, it's a new value on an existing label, right?
A new condition, and condition is already a label.
Hmm.
Let me check that because it's been a while since I looked at the code itself. Yeah, because what's now being picked up by the metric is the sync error status, and what's now actually being produced when the post sync job is failing is failed error.
Okay.
So
So
if you scroll up to the, what is it? Yeah, the first link, the GitHub link. Then here are all the conditions that are currently supported in the metric. So you see the sync error that's defined. But as you saw in the status that is being shown in the manifest, is that the failed error is being produced, which is not mapped to any of these values.
we're producing basically a non-standard condition, or at least a condition that's not documented here. So, follow-up question, why is the failed condition insufficient? Why would you need a separate hook failed condition?
Sorry, what do you mean? Because the failed condition is not in here.
It's not linear. What do you mean by not linear?
No, it's not defined in this list. So can you show the issue page again? Yeah, so if you check the status part, so this is part of the manifest of the application. So when you press sync and the post sync hook fails, you get this condition.
Okay.
So the type is failed. I think that's a valid condition.
I see.
And I think it's reflected in all parts of Argo CD. Also, the UI is showing that it's a sync failed. It's just not reflected in the metric app conditions.
Weird. Okay, so I follow. We have this kind of strange condition that isn't showing up in the app condition metric. Okay, I follow that. It makes sense. This probably also makes sense to add it to that list of constants so that it's better documented.
Yeah, and I think it's just a limitation because nobody ever asked for it and it was never needed. So I understand why it is not there. But the question is, should it be there?
Um,
And is the use case I have, is that valid?
I think the use case is valid. Looking at the PR, it looks very sync hook failed specific. I'm not sure why that's the case. Seems like we just want to make sure that the metrics are capable of producing a failed error as a condition. But I guess generally I support the idea. The code is it doesn't reflect the idea that I think we're discussing though. Yeah, because you had a new condition, post-sync hook error, when I guess what it seems like we should do is just make sure that the metrics system is capable of producing the existing failed condition.
Let me check because I didn't work on the code myself. Let me see. Yeah, indeed, you're right. Yeah.
Okay, so we will make sure that failed error condition is propagated to matrix condition to verify this part. Okay. Cool. I did this comment. Are any other questions to us on this topic?
No, I think that's it. The only question I have is then how is this going to proceed? Is this something any of you will then take on and make the changes, or how does that work?
We potentially need to extend the description, how it should be implemented, like what is the issue in proposal, or edit to comment, and after someone will pick up it. And we'll work on it.
Okay.
So also
Is there anything?
also welcome to contribute if you have.
Yeah, I'm not that expert in Golang, but I'm happy to give it a try. And yeah, if there's anything else I can contribute in terms of documentation and explaining, then let me know. Happy to do so.
I would say don't assume that someone's going to pick up the coding work unless an individual says
Yeah,
that they're going to do it.
indeed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Watch.
But then basically, what I then understand is nobody here is saying they will do it. So there still needs to be someone that wants to do this. Yeah. Okay. Clear.
You're right.
Then yeah, I will definitely give it a try, and then otherwise see if I can push somebody else to see if they are able to do this.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Manhal, are you here?
Yeah, I have a PR open for.
Yep. So you're suggesting to access secrets credentials over via volume and not over environment variables, right?
Yeah, so Argo CD, the current Argo CD component reads Redis secret from ANV, but in some environment with strict security compliance and policy, uh, credential need to be loaded from the file mount rather than only from the env. So this PR introduce a variable which points to the directory where a credential has to be mounted, and the component will be reading the secrets from this mount. So I have a previous PR. It has some commit issue, so I have opened another PR. So this is my previous.
Yep, I understood. Just checking here was some discussion. So suggestion first is to read it from Kubernetes secrets and secret. Okay. Yeah, and I understood that you opened pull request. Michael, I see that you commented a lot on it. Do you remember the context of it? Because I see that you and Alex already commented pretty a lot on. Okay.
All I remember is that reading from Kubernetes isn't really an option. We don't want to give the repo server Kubernetes API access.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So solution is that you provide wall mounts and just read it, right?
Yeah, for the Argo CD component, it will read from the volume mount. And for the Redis component, we need to introduce a new config map. So this config map will basically have a script, and this script would help load the secret into the redis.conf file for the Redis components.
Isn't there a standard configuration file that can be provided to Redis that has all the
We can provide the redis.conf file, but the client from the client side, I mean from the Argo CD component, we wouldn't be able to read this conf file.
correct?
And also we will be exposing. We need to expose it as a env again if we are providing in conf file. So that's the reason.
So what is priority, how it works? It will check first environment variable. If it's not exist, it will try to read it
Yeah,
from.
it will first check for the mount part. If the mount part is available, it will first read the secret from the mount part and return the credential, whatever credential is, that is provided in the secret.
Understood. Okay. Okay.
Basically, I'm looking for a review feedback to help it move forward.
Okay. Yeah, it's cool. So we'll have time after on next triage. Maybe Leo, maybe you'll have time during triage time, so you can review it, or Eugen. Okay, Michael, your one is next. Anal, do you have any other questions to us except review request?
That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Michael, your one is next. I saw here pretty big issue with cluster upgrade, right? Kubernetes.
Yeah, the way I'm reading this so far, and I haven't caught up, there have been a lot of new comments. Argo CD by default creates a new like cluster role binding, cluster role, and service account on each new cluster it's installed on, and then it creates a long-lived token, which is stored in a secret on the Argo CD host cluster. So that provides us persistent access to the external cluster. We've known for some time that that's kind of an anti-pattern. Kubernetes is moving towards short-lived tokens, and I think what they call like the refresh API. Regardless, it looks like potentially EKS with their upgrade to 1.34 has disabled the long-lived token access mechanism, which may or may not be a big deal. If everyone can just switch over to workload identity, because we already provide AWS auth mechanisms, then it's no problem. They use a better system anyway. But if 1.34 like removes long-lived token access in general, not just for EKS, but for all Kubernetes clusters, or if this becomes more of a pattern with cloud providers, then kind of the default way of setting up a new cluster in Argo CD, or at least a very prominently documented one, is going to disappear. So we've either got to start supporting the new access method, or completely go to cloud off, which I don't think is really an option. So I think we probably have to start supporting the new API. I just added it to see if anyone else had any additional context or suggestions on how to proceed and deal with the potential problems here.
I saw that a lot of other operators also have the same issue. Maybe we should go over them to see what is their suggestions in this case, to see how they're going to resolve, because it's kind of affected everyone in some way. Any comments on it?
I think Carlos was planning to deliver new documentation around this, and he was targeting 3.2. Was that completed?
I'm not sure about that. Was it new documentation for Ursa, or do you remember exactly what the docs were about?
It was for supporting the new EKS authentication method.
Pod identity. Yeah, you mentioned that. That was like 6 months ago. He said something then. It's been really
Yeah, he had taken on an assignment to update the documentation around it, and we didn't so I think we were waiting on that before we did something else.
But I think that the documentation that he's working on is going to be specific with authentication with the EKS methods. And here, I think that we're talking about something more general with different Kubernetes clusters, not necessarily EKS ones, if I understand correctly.
Yeah,
Yep.
it looks like
Yeah, I understand.
EKS is going to get bit, but it's going to be others. Okay. I'll bring it up internally and see if we're gonna have any time on my team to work on the token request API support, which is what I think we'd need to continue to use standard K8s tokens instead of like cloud pod identity.
Okay, and for now we're just updating documentation for AKS users.
Yeah, I think that would be wise. I'll add a comment to this thread.
Okay, so Carlos is working on it, right? Then as I understand review.
Well, he had said something about that a while ago. We should probably follow up with him again.
Okay. Cool. Need to contact him and ask. Next topic, John, are you here?
Yes, I am here. So we talked about this for a couple of contributor meetings, but I've revised the approach after talking with Michael about it. So we used to do a cluster scan. The first approach of this basically scan the cluster in iterate hierarchy v2 to basically identify parents that had like disconnected owner relationships, or sorry, identify children that had disconnected owner relationships that we weren't like tracking in the current state of the hierarchy. But it occurred to us that there is a better place that we already have in the cache, a place where we have the entire state of the cluster in hand. And so when I've switched this so that we're now using the cache to track those relationships as we're building out the cluster cache in the GitOps engine, I believe. And we are taking taking stock of all of those of any affected relationships, which is cluster scope parents and namespace children. So we're taking stock of all those relationships as we do the cluster scan to populate the cache, and then we are writing those down, and then they get passed around on the cache struct. So what this does, this change, is it adds a couple of fields where we keep a lookup for from namespace to cluster scoped parent to child, and then there's a reverse lookup the other way around, so that as we're building out iterate hierarchy v2, we already have that stuff in hand and there's no scanning. We just do a couple of quick map lookups, and the relationship pops out and we can render it in UI.
Let me open the issue quickly. Okay, understood. It has been discussed, right, as I understand, so you had some comments before.
But so I spoke with Michael last week after this meeting, and we ended up changing the approach, which is why there's a new PR and a new discussion.
Understood. So you're just requesting actually a review, right? You already have suggestion how to implement it.
Michael suggested that there were folks on the maintainer team that might have a better window into reviewing this than he would.
Okay.
Yeah. The adding stuff to the existing cluster cache is kind of a big deal. I'm a little curious what Alex M thinks of this, because I think Alex, you did the original cluster cache implementation. But all the existing cluster cache sort of assumes that we're going to be finding relationships from cluster scope owners to cluster scope children, or cluster scope namespace resources to, sorry, namespace scope resources to namespace scope children. Adding a new cache to sort of represent the dependencies between cluster scoped resources and namespace scope children, that's overhead both in terms of memory processing and code maintainability. You know, I'm curious what other folks think about the cost benefit there.
It is a valid but unsupported by Argo state of Kubernetes resource ownership. Kubernetes allows it.
Yeah, I also remember we got requests that someone created custom CRD and controller which create namespace or whatever resource which is namespace scoped, but like it was produced by CRD, so he kind of expected to see it in preview that it was created by this CRD. But as I remember, yes, it's introduced kind of additional complexity and affect the things.
Yeah, main reason not to support it was because it definitely will be slower, but I don't know how much slower. And I think we had a discussion about similar pull request, and one proposal was to make it at least make it possible to disable it, because I can imagine in some clusters Argo CD might just became too slow. It won't help with code complexity, but at least should prevent. I'm afraid that if we merge it and then someone upgrades to a new version of Argo CD, and it's just much slower than before.
This one does have a disable flag, disable environment variables in there.
Yeah, that.
What is the amount of computation that gets added when the condition? Sorry, as I understand in the code here, there's conditional logic if the resource is a child of a cluster scoped resource, but if it isn't, do we have any idea like how much overhead is added in all those cases? Like I know this is a narrow use case, I think primarily related to usage of crossplane. So I'm just wanting to understand for every other resource that's not like this, do we expect this to make much difference cost, say CPU or memory wise?
So the additional memory overhead comes in for only the relationships that we're storing, right? So if you don't have any of these, then the memory overhead is negligible because the cache never fills up, right? The compute overhead is largely around maintaining that cache. So if there's nothing in it, you don't have to update your references or update your back references or anything like that if it's empty. And then the compute overhead for looking up the relationships to render them out in iterate hierarchy is pretty small as well, because we already have the map in hand to just dive in and pull out the relationships that are relevant for the context that we're in right now, and then add them to the graph, which then gets sent out to the UI. So I think the performance of this is pretty good, and we have some benchmarks. We have a benchmark test around the sync method already, which is where most of the overhead for actually building the cache comes in. And that will vary. The amount of additional work will vary based on the number, like the count of those relationships that you have in the cluster. So if you don't have many of them, and most people don't, like I would be surprised if you broke like 1% of all relationships in the cluster, right? Would maybe fall under this, even in cases where you're using it pretty heavily. That's where all the extra work comes in. It's pretty good about not doing a ton of extra work in cases where it's not needed. And I think the code bears that out.
You mentioned about benchmark. Is this benchmark documented somewhere?
I added a couple more benchmarks for the previous implementation, and I don't think those are good benchmarks for this implementation. We have an existing benchmark already in the test suite, which is just benchmark sync, I think. And I can run a before and after comparison with that if we feel like that test is a good illustration of this case. But the last time I kind of took a benchmark upon myself, it turned out that wasn't a great illustration either. So I'd like some feedback on whether we think that will actually capture what we want to capture, the existing test.
Is it the existing test doesn't contain enough of the a representative sample of cluster scope resources that
it doesn't.
own
Well, I mean,
namespace the scoped resources?
Yeah. And like I'm not sure if I want to modify the existing benchmark test to actually capture the new set of relationships, because that might throw off benchmark results from different work that's going on or something.
I would just modify it. No one's really using the benchmarks. We don't automatically run them or anything like that. So dive in and make them yours, I think.
Actually, the fact that the benchmark exists at all, I can run the before and after with no cluster scoped resources, and that'll tell you what the baseline case is for the amount the amount of extra work.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jonathan, you will run benchmarks, you'll attach them to pull request, yeah? And after we can continue this review. Okay, and it's already covered by some flag, right? As you mentioned. So we can control enable. Okay, nice. Anything else to ask? Any other questions? Okay, cool. Jancy, are you here?
Yes. Hello. Good morning, everyone. So basically, this PR was actually presented in one of the contributors' meeting, 3 meetings back, if I correctly remember. And Nitish, if I'm not wrong, was assigned to review this PR. They suggested a small change to add a unit test case, which I did. So this is just a follow-up on the request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nitish, are you here? Let me see. No, he's not here today. Maybe you can just take him back as long as he already started to do review, and it will be easier for him to continue.
In the Slack?
Yep, just contact him in Slack. I'm sure he'll be happy to finish
Okay.
review.
Sure. That helps. Thank you.
Okay, any other last minute topic? We still have 3 minutes.
I think
Yeah,
we skipped.
I think. Yeah. Can we go over my topic? I think we skipped that.
Wow, sorry, Colin. I'm really sorry.
No worries.
I don't
No
know.
worries. No worries.
Okay.
So this is a PR by, I think, one of our customers, and so there's an issue for it, and the PR was pretty descriptive. I plan to kind of test it out probably next week, but I just wanted to get some eyes on and see if there's any other context which we might be missing. So the PR is to look for deleted namespaces so that the cluster cache is not doesn't go down looking for namespaces which have already been deleted. So it adds that. So like but I think it also refers to running Argo CD in namespaced mode. And I don't have a lot of experience there, so that's why I just wanted to bring it to the meeting here and see if there is any context that I'm missing here.
So namespace mode in the context of the cluster cache means that instead of initiating a watch on the whole cluster and all namespace resources, we basically loop over a list of namespaces and initiate a watch for each namespace. It's generally used in cases where people want to avoid overburdening the cluster cache and filling up memory. It's kind of not surprising that it gets broken for certain cases. I'm a little bit surprised that just deleting a namespace that's in the watch list could totally break GitOps engine, but yeah, I could see it.
Also, so they also mentioned that there is a label, or maybe it's an annotation which is added. So is that part of the same namespaced mode? So like if you go into the issue 24709, the reproduction steps. Oh no, I think that's another PR.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's still there in the description. Scroll above. Just above the problem, do you see fixes? And then cool. So if you see the description, it says that if there's a namespace which had that annotation managed by, and if they delete that namespace without removing that label or annotation, that's a step 2.
Yeah, I understand.
So they're adding this label managed by, and if they delete the namespace without removing this label, that's what causes the cluster cache sync to cluster clash to go down. So I wanted to check in, like, if this namespace, because when I was looking at the docs, enabling namespaced mode is just about like listing the namespaces that we want Argo CD to watch. But then I was kind of curious what this label has any association with running in the namespace.
I don't think that GitOps engine has any direct knowledge of this label. So my guess is that the problem is coming from a relationship between GitOps engine and Argo CD. So Argo CD uses this label to mean we create this resource. I think that's what it means. So my guess is there's some kind of catch-22 where Argo CD is like, hey, GitOps engine, delete this thing. And GitOps engine is like, oh, it doesn't exist, so I don't know what to do. And they're both stuck. I think it's a deadlock condition, probably. But I don't know enough about this annotation to be certain.
Gotcha. So here's what I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to go follow the reproduction steps and then also look at the code, and maybe I can bring it up in the next meeting if there are still some open questions from there.
It's a fun bug.
But it's not really
Thankfully,
related.
they already have a pull request for it. Sorry, go ahead.
But it's not really related only to managed namespace, right? It's also in cluster mode, or not really, or it happens only in managed namespace mode. In case if it's like concrete namespace.
I do not know. I can
what
check.
Michael, you mentioned at the beginning that it's somehow related to namespace setup. But isn't it the same problem for cluster scoped?
I'm guessing not based on the issue description, but theoretically, I guess it could apply to both. Someone would have to run it and confirm.
Okay. Yeah, because I also think that it's potentially the same issue for both cases. Okay. So Kainka, you just need to review, right? Everything is ready. You just want to request review on it.
Yeah, and I will try to test it out myself and then add comments on it as well.
So you kind of in GitHub Engine, you verify that namespace exists. And what you're doing? You kind of added additional check. So
yes.
You're verifying that if it's not really exist anymore, you're just moving forward with deletion.
Yeah. So if the namespace doesn't exist, it checks the deleted namespaces map and then sees if it was deleted and then doesn't process API for that.
Okay, understood. Cool. Good catch on this.
Oh, this is not my PR. So yeah.
But issue your or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, neither.
No?
Not the issue or the pull request. Neither of them were created by me, but they were brought to us by a customer. So we were just like looking at it.
Understood. Okay.
And
cool. Okay. We already passed 5 minutes, so thank you everyone. See you next week.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.